The Deaf Musicians. Story by Pete Seeger and Paul DuBois Jacobs. Illustrations by R. Gregory Christie. Who will listen to a deaf musician? Lee is a piano man. Every night he plays jazz for the crowd. It sounds something like this. Blink a blink, bump, blink, blink. Yimba timba tang, zang, zang. One night, Lee's bandmates notice something is off. Lee's music comes out like this. Ronk, thump, donk. There's no way to hide it. Lee is losing his hearing. Then Lee discovers sign language. And soon after he meets Max, who plays the sax. Together they form a new band, the Deaf Musicians. But who will listen to a deaf musician? With the Deaf Musicians, Pete Seeger, Paul DuBois Jacobs, and three-time Coretta Scott King Honor winner R. Gregory Christie present an inspiring story of overcoming obstacles, set to a jazzy score. Ooh ah be doop, ooh ah yeah. The Deaf Musicians. To my deaf father, Charles Louis Seeger, Jr. P.S. For Judy, Stretch, and Natalia, P.D.J. For Mahamati, Scrampy, and Lady, thank you for the room and makeshift art table in Sydney. R.G.C. The Deaf Musicians. Story by Pete Seeger and Paul DuBois Jacobs. Illustrations by R. Gregory Christie. Lee was a piano man. Every night he would walk on stage at the jazz club to play his piano, snazzy style. It went something like this. Blink a blink, bump, blink, blink, yimba tim tang, zang, zang. But one night, Lee's bandmates noticed something. Lee, you didn't answer our notes, man. What's wrong? Lee was almost afraid to tell them. He couldn't hear their notes. He was losing his hearing. His bandmates tried to cover for him, but Lee was just plain off. His music came out like this. Ronk, donk. It wasn't long before the band leader noticed, too. I'm sorry, Lee, but I'll have to let you go. Who will listen to a deaf musician? Poor Lee. He couldn't hear the trumpet go doodle bop bop, boo bang bing. He couldn't hear the bass go bomb a boom, bomb a boom. That night, riding home on the subway, Lee saw an advertisement for a school for the deaf. Maybe I can learn how to do something new, he thought. The school turned out to be a very cool place. Lee loved sign language the best. To him, it looked like jazz. He saw hands dancing with a doodle bop bop. He saw fingers talking with a boo bang bing. He saw bodies moving with a shoosh shoosh shoogle. You learn quick, said one young man with his hands. You must be a musician. I used to be, said Lee sadly. Well, stick with me and you'll see, said the young man. My name's Max, and I play the sax. Riding the subway back and forth to school, Lee and Max rapped about their favorite jazz tunes. By using sign language, it was easy to talk over the racket of the subway cars and rush hour crowds. On one ride home, Lee and Max got to playing a song. They found they could follow each other perfectly. Lee played the notes of his piano. Blink-a-blink, bump, blink, blink. Yimba-timba-tang, zang, zang. Max played the notes of his saxophone. Doodle-bop-bop, boo-bang-bing. Each musician heard the music in his own mind. It wasn't long before they were tossing tunes back and forth every day. One evening, a woman came up to them. "I know this song," she signed, fingers a-fluttered as if playing a stand-up bass. "Bum-ba-bum, bum-ba-bum. I like your style," said Lee. "Will you join our band?" asked Max. The woman laughed. "I'd be honored. The name's Rose." Soon the trio began to hold regular rehearsals in the subway, but something was missing. "We need a singer," said Lee. "I know just the one," smiled Rose. Her friend Ellie was a sign language interpreter, a translator of sound. Ellie knew all the great jazz standards by heart. Ooh ah, ba-doo, ba-doo, ooh ah, yeah. As the quartet rehearsed, people on the subway began to notice. Startled eyes and ears turned into hand claps and dance steps. Some passengers even missed their stops to stay and watch the musicians a little longer. And Lee, who once thought his jazz life was over, found himself playing for audiences larger than ever before. Night after night, Lee and his band would meet in the subway to perform, snazzy style. One night, while they were playing, Lee's old band leader appeared from out of the crowd. He gestured to Lee. "Your new band is fantastic." The two men shook hands. "Thanks," said Lee. "Remember when you asked me, 'Who will listen to a deaf musician?' Everyone." Afterward, although I've never played with deaf musicians, each year I participate in a music festival called Clearwater's Great Hudson River Revival. One of the festival's long-standing traditions is to have a sign language interpreter on every music stage. It's a reminder of the power of music even when it can't be heard. I'm thankful to all the wonderful interpreters who've joined me over the years in getting audiences to sing. After all, a chorus of people working together is itself a kind of magic. I've seen this over and over at concerts when the audience joins in on a song. The altos take one part, the tenors take another, and other folks fill in between until there's a thunderous, joyful sound. Something much greater than the song that began. The real music is in people joining together. Pete. Pete Seeger has long been a storyteller and has put together many songs, including "Where Have All the Flowers Gone?", "Turn, Turn, Turn", and with Lee Hayes, "If I Had a Hammer". He is also the author of a classic picture book, Abiyoyo. He and his wife Tashi live near Beacon, New York. Paul Dubois Jacobs has previously collaborated with Pete on Abiyoyo Returns and Some Friends to Feed, both illustrated by Michael Hayes. Paul lives in Brooklyn, New York, with his wife Jennifer Swender, and together they wrote the picture book My Subway Ride, R. Gregory Christie is the 3-time Coretta Scott King honor-winning illustrator of Brothers in Hope, Only Passing Through, and The Palm of My Heart. Among his other acclaimed picture books are Richard Wright and The Library Card by William Miller and Hot City by Barbara Josie. Like Paul, Gregory lives in Brooklyn, New York. Visit him at www.gas-art.com.